Hello, everyone. I'm Maddox Brown with New England MMA News, and I'm here with Slippery Pete, Peter Barrett. How you doing, Pete?
What's up, Maddox? Man, I'm real good. How's everything going with you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for coming on to the show again. So now we're gonna get into your most recent fight, where you won the Cage Titans lightweight title by defeating Joe Giannetti by a split decision. Can you walk
Mhm.
us through how that fight went for you?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I thought I thought it was going to be a harder fight than it was, and I'm not saying that he's not a tough opponent or anything. It's just I beat him with footwork, a jab, and a low kick, and I just absolutely destroyed him. And as far as I know you saw it, but as far as that being a split decision, that should have been a unanimous
Yeah,
slaughtering across the boards. I don't know what the judge was watching, but it wasn't our fight, that's for sure. And it was a really good opportunity for me to make a statement about how there are levels to this game. And he's simply not on mine. And it was just, like I said, I beat him with a jab and a low kick. I didn't do anything fancy. I didn't, throw anything too wild or too crazy. I mean, I flipped him off and I slapped him in the face at one point. But as far as like, special moves or anything, I just stuck to the basics, chopped that lead leg and really, really tortured him for 5 rounds.
that was one of the fights the most I've ever seen you like that calculated, like staying on the same track for everything.
Yeah, and I had a couple reminders, and I was pretty present the whole fight, and any time that I got overexcited or I was pushing forward a little too much, I ended up with him trying to take me down, or we tied up a little bit, or we were clinching a bit, not clinching, but more like pummeling. And there were a few times where I kind of rushed into him. I'm like, listen, dude, you got to slow the fuck down, do a little bit less, and stick to your game plan, which is circle to the left, chop the low kick. The whole fight camp, I was really just blowing hot air up everyone's ass by saying I was going to choke him out. Now, like, had the choke presented itself, I would have taken it 100%. But like, my whole goal of that fight was to torture him and was to beat him, as clearly and as soundly as I could with my best tools. And it just it was just there were little reminders. Okay, I ended up here. Oh, he hit me. What was I doing wrong? I even had a timer in my head where it was like if I was in one place for more than 3 seconds, I had to keep telling myself, yo, pick a direction and go. Circle to the left, circle to the right, circle to the left, circle to the right. And that's what a majority of my training camp was. It was a lot of footwork drills. I did hit pads and I did spar, but a majority of my training camp was solo work that I programmed based off of my training with Coach Barry Robinson, and I just really focused on the footwork and really made that shine in the fight.
Was there anything you wish you did differently?
I really wish I knocked him out. I do. I would have loved to have elbowed him, and I would have loved to have made him bleed a little bit more. Um, but it's like I'm okay with this being like a shortcoming, but I always feel like I'm doing worse than I am while I'm fighting, and I maybe I gave him too much credit where like I thought he was playing possum, later in the rounds, just trying to like bait me in and like try to get a hold of my neck. And after watching the fight a few times, like I really think I gassed him out in the first round, and he was just surviving, and I just overcompensated, I think, for how dangerous he could have been and thought he was playing possum, so I kept my range, like I might have said this to you when we interviewed before the fight. Like this is the same game plan that I worked for Zach. This is the same game plan that I worked for Chase Hooper. And it was just another chance to refine keeping my range, staying close enough to hurt him, but far enough away not to get tied up.
So I mean, his leg was destroyed like after the first also, so his movement was definitely all messed up, and the
Hmm.
cardio was a thing there. Did the fight play out like you thought it would? Do you think it would go that way?
I mean, I knew I was going to win. I didn't really, I would have liked to have kicked him in the head a few more times, maybe thrown some more knees, but like when you're in there and like you have these mental blocks and you feel like you're just not in range. Like on Saturday, I kept asking Jay, like, dude, why aren't you throwing your fucking knees more? He's like, I don't feel like I'm in the right place. They don't feel like they're gonna land. And I'm like, dude, I'm telling you right now, you throw those knees, they're gonna fucking land. And that's just sometimes when you're in there, you have these blocks or like there have been fights where like I swear I felt like I couldn't touch my opponent. Like my jabs weren't working. In hindsight, I beat the shit out of these people. But like in the fight, I'm like, dude, for whatever reason, I feel like I'm not landing. And that's why I end up going in like a little heavier sometimes. But it yeah, it was just, more violence. I would have liked more violence, more blood, more pain. But that being said, I fucked old boy's leg up really bad.
You mentioned Jay Perrin's win last weekend. So how fun was that to watch your boy go out there and dominate?
It was, he got hit a little bit more than I would have liked to have seen him get hit. I was texting him later that night when we were home, to the point where he told me to shut the fuck up, Peter. But there's almond butter in that. Sorry. Um, he got hit a little bit more than I would have liked. I would have liked to see him playing a little bit more offense from the outside. Um, but we're our own worst critics, and he did a great job. He won. He got his hand raised, but maybe just a little cleaner of a victory next time.
So now we're gonna get into your upcoming fight, which I'm very excited for. You're fighting Charles Rosa at Gamebred Bare Knuckle. What do you know about your opponent right now, and how do you see this fight going for you?
So Charles, an old school Boston boy. He's born and raised in Peabody. He's best friends with my training partner Rico. He's cousins with my former training partner. Oh my God, his name just ran off the tip of my tongue. I can see him. Louis Carapi. Louis Carapi, Charles Rosa cousins. Louis Carapi was a Sit Yad Tong guy forever, way back in the day. Same thing with Rico. So when Charles Rosa would come up here and fight at CES, or if he was home, he would always stop in to sit and cross train with us. So we're we're not friends. We know each other. I don't think we have bad things to say about each other. I respect him, and I know he's a tough veteran, but we're the same age, and he's got a lot more mileage on his body than I do. You don't win fight of the night in the UFC by having a cakewalk. You know what I mean? Like he's been in some absolute battles, and he is a game warrior. I just think that my competitive edge is going to be the tenacity and lack of miles on my body that I have that he doesn't. And we just saw me, go 5 minute rounds, no problem, breathing fine at the end of the fight. So I know I can push the pace here and just overwhelm him and proceed to smash him.
Did you expect the fight with Charles to happen at some point?
No, I actually I didn't. I like once I saw him get the CES belt, I was like, oh, I could go down there and take that from him. And then lo and behold, the Gamebred matchup comes through, and my manager texts me, goes, "Hey, would you fight Charles?" And I was like, "Is this for real?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, 100%, no doubt about it. I was actually just looking at him in that same light. So, um, I put myself out there as the king of Boston, and now it's my opportunity to cement that status.
How did that matchup come about? Was it just you got texted and you said yes?
Yeah, pretty much. We've been harassing the matchmaker down at Gamebred for like the last 6 months, and I've actually been more focused. I was more focused on getting a fight with them than I was fighting for the lightweight belt at Cage Titans. And we decided to move forward with the Cage Titans fight because we weren't getting an answer from Gamebred because they were not matching fights while Masvidal was on his honeymoon. He got mad. He fought. He got married, and then he disappeared to Costa Rica for like a month with no cell phone. Nobody would get a hold of him. So once he got back, they started making the matches. And at that point, I had just, I was like 2 weeks off of beating the shit out of or getting the belt, however you want to say it. Um, so the name came across. I said yes, and here we are.
Do you see any weaknesses in Charles' game?
I think his striking, absolutely his striking. I'm not saying he's a bad striker. I think he's a quality guy. I just think he's a better grappler than he is a better striker. And I think that's my advantage right there. And where it's the bare knuckle MMA. I've just spent so many fights perfecting on keeping that range, not letting anybody get close to me and doing damage. So this game plan is gonna, show up yet again and allow me to really master it over the next 7 or 8 weeks.
What do you think will be your keys to victory in this fight?
My highly calculated violence. We're going to be working a lot of clinch, a lot of knees, a lot of elbows. Ideally, I'll throw as minimal amount of punches as possible, get into range, and really put a beating on them and hurt them with said knees and elbows. But it's going to be an adrenaline rush the first time I hit him with no gloves on. That's for sure.
Um, so we know this is your first bare knuckle fight. So how excited are you to make this debut?
This is awesome. This is a great opportunity. I've been looking forward to it for a while, and like I said, I was looking for this before I was looking for the title fight at Cage Titans. So I just, the you got to strike while the iron is hot. These guys are getting treated well. They're getting paid well. Um, they're offering multiple fight contracts within the promotion. So, if I go down there and I fight the way that I fight, I could come back with a pretty big deal on my plate and have my next few fights, set in stone, which would really help around the house.
What do you anticipate will be the toughest challenge Charles will present to you in this fight?
His toughness, and his grappling. I think those two go hand in hand. He's a really tough grappler. He's a strong black belt. I do think my wrestling is better than his, and I think my wrestling can, negate his ability to get into to grappling or some jujitsu. So um, we're just going to push forward and push the pace.
So, who are going to be some of your key training partners for this camp?
So Randy was around in my last fight camp. He's gonna, we're obviously as long as I was getting ready for my last fight. So he's in phenomenal shape. So he'll be around. I'll be back up at Sit Yat Tong with a rotating crew up there. Um, but I don't think we're really bringing anybody in, so to say. But I'm sure there's going to be some opportunities to cross train with some people and get some people in the room down at Lozon's as well.
So, what should the fans in Mississippi that haven't seen you before expect from Peter Barrett on November 15th?
Lots of blood and violence. Knees and elbows, a savage Muay Thai clinch, that we don't call it highly calculated violence for nothing. And, you know, I've been on a tear since I've been home from the UFC, and I'm looking to keep that tear going at the next level.
Do you have one final message to Charles Rosa before you guys get locked in the cage together?
I hope you're ready to get hit with no gloves, buddy, because I'm coming.
So now for my last couple questions, we're gonna get into how you got into the sport of MMA. What or who inspired you to start your career?
You know, I wrestled in high school, and then I was playing rugby in college, and then kind of got involved with some BJJ, and one thing led to another. I was taking their kickboxing classes, and then that fight team asked me to spend time and train with those guys, and I kind of fell in love with the sport the same way I fell in love with wrestling. The same way I fell in love with lacrosse and football in high school. So it was an opportunity for me to continue to be an athlete, and as time progressed, it became like my number one thing.
How did you find Sid Tong and Lozans?
So they're two like perennial or yeah perennial. They come back every year whatever. They're powerhouses in the MMA community in New England. And the first guy that I started training with, Mike Varner, he had trained under Crew Mark way back when he fought. And I went from Mike Varner over to Mike Gresh. Mike Gresh, another student of Mark Delagrati. And then from Gresh, I kind of like made Sit Yat Tong like my home base. And then from there, I added Lozons. Right before COVID, I was really missing what I needed for jujitsu for my MMA game, and it was just the most sensible, logical thing to get to Joe, train under Joe, and start learning under Joe. Is he's one of the best grapplers in the UFC history, and he was like an hour away from me at the time, so it was just foolish I hadn't gotten there sooner. Um, but it was really just the evolution of me as a fighter. I was with yeah, like I said, I was with some lower coaches in the Sit Yat Tong family, made my way up to Crew Mark, and then by needs within my game, I had to take on Joe as well.
Can you share the most memorable moment of your MMA career?
I would have to say that would go to getting the contract on the Contender Series, um, because that's kind of like that was I don't want to say that was like the beginning, but that was when I was first like validated that it was all worth it. Like I had put all that time and effort into this one thing, and it was finally paying off, and it was such like a validating moment in my life because not only had I been recognized in my community, but I was then being recognized by the next level.
Who is your biggest role model in the sport of MMA?
Oh man. When I was younger, I really looked up to the Diaz brothers because they were kind of like a no nonsense, don't take shit, but talk shit and get shit done kind of feeling. And my brother and I were fighting together, so it was kind of cool to have that brotherly bond. And we just kind of like did whatever the hell we wanted. We fought, we won, we beat people up, and it was a lot of fun. But as you get older and you kind of try to stay away from the antics unless you need them, Um, you more become like the sport becomes a role model, and you yourself become your own role model because you really just want to get to that best possible point of you as a human and an athlete. And I feel like those go hand in hand with each other.
Do you have any special shout outs to sponsors, supporters, and teammates before I let you go?
I mean, sure. Well, shout out all my guys at Lozons. Jay Perrin's always been a big help. Randy Costa's been a big help. Joe's been a big help. And you know, there's a handful of more guys over there. We've got uh, Andy, my coach up at Tom, crew Mark, my manager Tyson, my wife Africa. She takes care of me here at home and everything with the baby when I'm not around. Um, I said Top Gate Management, and um, last camp I had a lot of help from this guy Brandon Avila. We'll see if he's around for this fight camp, but he's a younger guy trying to get situated in the MMA game, and he's been putting in a lot of time with the fighters at Lozons as well. Um, but yeah, man, just the sponsors that will be coming in. I know I got Matty C Sports, who's another podcaster interviewer. He's always been a big support for me over the years. Um, Barrett Family Restaurants and then Barrett's Ale House. Those are the two different businesses from my family. They always help me out with sponsorships as well. So I guess I'll leave it at that.
All right, thank you for coming on. It was a pleasure to have you.
Oh man, and it was great to meet you last weekend in person.